"I saw her drug him," the waitress said. 3 words that would bring 180 Hell's Angels thundering into this quiet Ohio suburb. Rita's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she showed the biker the photo, his wife's manicured fingers tilting poison into his daughter's pink smoothie. 8 years old, 52 pounds, 12 minutes from sip to bathroom floor every Wednesday for 6 weeks. The stepmother smiled and called it vitamins. The doctors called it mystery illness. Rita called it what it was, murder in slow motion. And tonight, she finally had proof. The little girl had 3 weeks left to live. Before we continue, subscribe and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Rita Delgado's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She stood behind the counter at Maple Street Diner coffee pot in her grip, watching booth 12 through the pass-through window. Her knuckles had gone white around the handle. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. She had seen it. God help her. She had finally seen it. 45 years old, single mother of 3, 9 years working this same diner, same shift, same tables. Rita had learned to notice things other people missed. Which customers would skip out on their checks, which couples were fighting under their polite smiles, which kids were scared of their own parents. But this was different. This was murder happening in slow motion right in front of her every Wednesday night for 6 weeks. The little girl in booth 12 was dying, and Rita had just watched her stepmother poison her. "Order up, Rita," Cookie's voice cut through her spiral. "Table 8's getting cold." Rita blinked, set down the coffee pot because she was about to drop it. Her fingers were trembling too hard to trust. "Rita, you okay?" "Fine." The word came out strangled. "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was the furthest thing from fine she'd ever been in her life. Through the window, she could see the family in booth 12. The father, Marcus Cole, sat with his back to the wall. Massive man. 6'3", maybe 240, covered in tattoos that crept up his neck and disappeared into his hairline. He wore a leather vest with patches Rita didn't fully understand, but recognized as Hell's Angels. The kind of patches that made other men cross the street. He looked like every mother's nightmare. But Rita had watched him cut his daughter's food into tiny pieces without being asked. Had seen him slip his own French fries onto her plate when he thought no one was looking. Had heard him say, "It's okay, baby girl," so many times, his voice soft as cotton, that she'd lost count. Marcus Cole loved his daughter. His wife was killing her. Stephanie Cole had left 12 minutes ago. Early shift at the nursing home, she'd said, kissing Marcus on the cheek, squeezing Lily's shoulder with perfectly manicured fingers. She'd smiled at Rita on her way out, that smile that never quite reached her eyes. She'd also left behind the pink smoothie she'd brought from home, the special vitamin shake she insisted Lily drink every Wednesday, the one Rita had watched her doctor with a small amber bottle when she thought no one was looking. Lily had taken 3 sips. Now the 8-year-old was pushing back from the table, one hand pressed against her stomach face, going gray. "Daddy, I don't feel good." Rita's heart cracked. "Bathroom?" Lily nodded. Didn't speak. Just shuffled toward the back hallway, with the careful steps of a child who'd learned that moving too fast made everything worse. Rita had counted it. 12 minutes. Every single time. 12 minutes from the first sip of whatever Stephanie brought from home until Lily was in the bathroom vomiting until she had nothing left. When the girl only ate diner food, she was fine for hours. The pattern was so clear Rita couldn't believe she was the only one who saw it. "Rita," Cookie again, sharper this time, "what's going on with you?" Rita grabbed her phone from her apron pocket. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Cover me for 5 minutes. What? We're slammed. 5 minutes, Cookie, please. Something in her voice must have landed. Cookie studied her face, frowned, then nodded slowly. 5 minutes. Rita walked toward booth 12. Each step felt like wading through concrete. Her pulse roared in her ears. She was about to accuse a man's wife of attempted murder based on 6 weeks of watching and a photograph she'd taken 30 seconds ago of a hand and a bottle and a drink. If she was wrong, she'd lose her job. Maybe get sued. Definitely get screamed at by a man twice her size wearing a Hells Angels patch. If she was right and didn't say anything, that little girl was going to die. Rita had buried her own mother last year. Cancer. Slow and brutal and inevitable. She'd sat beside that hospital bed for 3 months watching someone she loved disappear piece by piece, powerless to stop it. She wasn't powerless now. Mr. Cole, Marcus looked up. His eyes were bloodshot, purple shadows underneath. The exhaustion of a parent who'd stopped sleeping because worry kept him awake. Rita recognized that look. She'd worn it herself when her youngest had gotten sick. Coffee. His voice was hoarse. Rita sat down across from him without asking permission. Mr. Cole, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without reacting until I'm finished. Can you do that? His brow furrowed. What's this about your daughter? Marcus's whole body went rigid. His hands flattened on the table, pressing down hard. What about Lily? She's not sick. The hell she's not. She's been throwing up for months. Doctors can't figure out what's wrong. They're talking about putting her in the hospital next week for Mr. Cole. Rita kept her voice low. Steady. Your daughter is not sick. Someone is making her sick. The silence between them stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Marcus's face went through something Rita would never forget. Confusion first, then dawning horror, then something else, something that made her lean back instinctively. Not anger at her, rage at the truth he hadn't let himself see. What did you say? Rita pulled out her phone. Her hands steadied as she opened the photos. Strange how the decision to act had calmed her down. She turned the screen toward him. 30 seconds ago, your wife added something to Lily's smoothie from a small bottle in her purse. Look. The image showed Stephanie's manicured hand. The glass with the pink liquid. The amber bottle tipped just slightly, something pale, dissolving into the drink. 12 minutes later, Lily's in the bathroom throwing up. 12 minutes exactly. I've counted for 6 weeks. Marcus stared at the photo. His breathing had gone shallow. Every Wednesday, Rita continued. Same pattern. She brings Lily something special from home, a smoothie, a vitamin drink, something. 12 minutes later, Lily's sick. When Lily just eats our food, she's fine for hours. That's, Marcus's voice cracked. That's not Stephanie would never. 6 weeks ago, your daughter weighed how much? He blinked at the change in direction. What? How much did she weigh, roughly? Maybe 65 pounds. She was small for her age, but healthy. And now, Marcus's face crumbled. The doctors think she's dropped to maybe 52. They can't explain the weight loss. They can't explain any of it. Because they're looking for a disease. There is no disease. There's a person. You're accusing my wife of, I'm telling you what I saw, what I've seen for 6 weeks, what I photographed tonight. Rita's voice hardened. And I'm telling you that if those doctors put in a feeding tube that your wife controls. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Marcus stared at her like she'd reached into his chest and stopped his heart. Then he looked at the photo again, at his wife's hand, at the bottle, at the drink his daughter had been swallowing for months. Why? His voice was barely a whisper. Why would she? Does Lily have life insurance? The color drained from Marcus's face. Oh God. How much? 400,000. The words came out strangled. Stephanie said it was smart. In case something happened. She handles all the finances, all the paperwork. When did you take out the policy? Marcus's hands had started shaking. 11 months ago, 2 months after we got married. Rita felt sick. She'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed made her stomach turn. Mr. Cole, I work in a diner. I'm not a cop. I'm not a doctor. I'm a waitress who's raised 3 kids and buried her mother and learned to trust her gut when something feels wrong. She met his eyes. Something is very wrong. And if you don't act tonight, if you take that little girl home to that woman, I don't think she'll make it to Christmas. Marcus stood up so fast his coffee cup rattled. For one horrible moment, Rita thought he was going to hit her. Thought this was where she'd made a terrible mistake, accused an innocent woman. And now this giant, covered in tattoos, was going to, if you're right. His voice shook with barely contained violence. If someone is hurting my daughter... He stopped. Breathed. Forced himself back under control with visible effort. I will burn their world to the ground, but I need proof. Real proof that will hold up in court. Will you help me get it? Rita stood. Extended her hand. Marcus took it. His grip was careful despite the fury radiating off him. The hold of a man who'd learned to control his own strength. That woman needs to face what she's done, Rita said. And that little girl needs people willing to tell the truth even when it's ugly. From the back hallway, the bathroom door opened. Lily emerged. Gray-faced, watery eyes, moving like every step hurt. She saw her father standing and flinched. I'm sorry. I know I keep getting sick. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Rita's heart shattered. Marcus crossed the diner in 3 strides and dropped to his knees. This massive, terrifying-looking man folded himself down to his daughter's eye level. He cupped her face in both hands, thumbs gentle against hollow cheeks. Lily, look at me, baby girl. She looked, tears spilling over. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. Whatever is happening, it is not your fault. It has never been your fault. But Stephanie says if I just try harder, Stephanie is wrong. The words came out hard, final. Marcus softened immediately, but the damage was done. Lily's eyes went wide. Daddy, we're not going home tonight. You and me were going to Grandpa's house. Just us. Father-daughter sleepover. But Stephanie is not invited. Lily's lower lip trembled, but something else flickered across her face. Something that looked almost like hope, like relief, like a child who'd been waiting for someone to notice her suffering, and finally someone had. Really? Marcus picked her up, careful of her fragile body, cradling her against his leather vest, like she weighed nothing. And tomorrow we're going to see different doctors, better doctors, ones who are actually going to help you. Lily buried her face in his shoulder, her thin arms wrapped around his neck. Rita watched them and felt tears burning in her own eyes. Mr. Cole. He turned. My number. She pressed a slip of paper into his hand. Call me anytime. Middle of the night doesn't matter. I'll testify to whatever you need. Marcus pocketed the number, shifted Lily's weight, then pulled out his wallet and left 4 20s on the table. For your courage, he said. Rita pushed 2 of them back. I don't want payment for doing the right thing. I just want that woman to face what she's done. Marcus nodded once, sharp, certain. Then he carried his daughter out the door. Rita watched through the window as he buckled Lily into the passenger seat of a black pickup truck. Watched him stand beside the driver's door phone pressed to his ear, lips moving in what might have been a prayer or a curse. She didn't know it yet, but that phone call would set everything in motion. Marcus's hands were still shaking when he dialed. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Talk to me." "Spectre." Marcus's throat was so tight he could barely get the word out. "It's Reaper." Silence. Vincent Torres Spectre, to every Hell's Angel who knew him, had been president of the Columbus chapter for 8 years, 54 years old. Former Franklin County Sheriff's detective who'd walked away after a corruption scandal shattered his faith in the system. He knew Marcus's voice, knew that tone. "What happened?" "Someone's been poisoning Lily." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Say that again?" "For months, making it look like she's sick. The doctors can't figure it out because they're looking for a disease, but there's no disease. There's a person." Marcus's voice cracked. "There's a $400,000 life insurance policy, and I think she's done this before." "Who?" Marcus couldn't say her name, couldn't make his mouth form the word that would make this real, that would admit he'd brought a monster into his home, into his daughter's life. "My wife." Spectre didn't ask for proof, didn't demand evidence, didn't hesitate for even 1 second. "Where are you?" "Maple Street Diner. I'm taking Lily to my father's house." "Do that. Keep her safe. Don't go home. Don't contact Stephanie. Don't do anything until I get there." "Spectre, I'm mobilizing the chapter. Every brother within 50 miles. We'll be at Devil's Forge by 9. Can you make it?" Marcus looked at his daughter through the truck window. She'd fallen asleep already exhausted from the vomiting, from the months of being sick, from the endless grinding effort of trying to survive what should have been safety. "Yeah, I'll be there." "Reaper." "Yeah. She doesn't get to hurt your daughter ever again. I swear it on my patch." The line went dead. Marcus climbed into his truck, reached over and brushed a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. She stirred, but didn't wake. "I'm going to fix this baby girl," he whispered. "Daddy's going to fix everything." He started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. Behind him, still visible through the diner window, Rita Delgado was already writing down everything she'd seen. Every detail, every date, every pattern she'd noticed over 6 weeks of watching a little girl disappear. She wrote until her hand cramped. Then she kept writing. Marcus's father lived 20 minutes outside the city. Jim Cole, 71 years old, retired auto worker, widowed for 3 years. He met Marcus at the door before the truck had fully stopped. "What's wrong?" "I need you to keep Lily tonight." "Of course, but Marcus, what?" "I can't explain right now." Marcus was already lifting his daughter from the passenger seat. She was so light. Too light. When had she gotten so light? "Just don't let anyone take her. Anyone. Even if they say they're from the hospital or social services or—" "Marcus!" Jim's voice sharpened. "What the hell is going on?" Marcus looked at his father. At the man who'd raised him, who'd never lied to him, who'd taught him that protecting family was the only thing that mattered. "Stephanie's been hurting her, poisoning her, for months." Jim's face went white, then red. "That woman, I'm handling it. The club is handling it. But I need Lily safe while we gather evidence." "Evidence, Marcus, if that woman—" "I know." Marcus's jaw was tight enough to crack. "Believe me, I know. But if we do this wrong, she walks, and Lily goes back to her." Jim's expression shifted. The rage was still there, but something colder moved behind it. Understanding. Strategy. "What do you need from me?" "Guard her. Don't let her out of your sight." Don't answer the door for anyone you don't know. And Stephanie, she doesn't know yet. She thinks everything's normal. That gives us time. Jim reached out and gripped Marcus's shoulder. Hard. You find out who's hurting my granddaughter, and you make them pay. I intend to. Marcus leaned in and kissed Lily's forehead. She was sleeping hard now, the deep sleep of someone whose body had been fighting too long. I'll be back tomorrow, he murmured. I promise. Then he walked back to his truck, climbed in, and drove toward Devil's Forge. The first motorcycles arrived at 8:47 p.m. By 9 o'clock, 63 bikes filled the clubhouse parking lot. The rumble of engines had brought neighbors to their windows, but no one called the police. Not in this neighborhood. Not for the Hells Angels. Spectre stood at the front of the meeting room, arms crossed, waiting. He'd made 4 calls after hanging up with Marcus. 4 calls that had activated a network built over decades. David Park arrived first. Medic. 46 years old, 2 tours in Iraq, combat medic training that he kept current because you never knew when you'd need it. Robert Washington came next. Scholar. 57 retired family court attorney who'd burned out on a system that failed children more often than it saved them. Jason Miller pulled up third. Wire. 31 cybersecurity specialist who'd left a 6-figure corporate job because he was bored and found the club more interesting. Frank Rossi walked in last. Elder. 63 founding member, the man whose word was law when things got complicated. What do we know? Medic asked. Reaper's daughter has been sick for months, Spectre said. Doctors can't figure out what's wrong. Tonight a witness saw his wife add something to the kid's drink. 12 minutes later the girl was throwing up. A witness saw this, photographed it. Silence. How long? Scholar's voice was quiet, controlled. 6 weeks of observation, months of symptoms, and there's a $400,000 life insurance policy on the kid taken out 11 months ago. Elder swore under his breath, something in Italian that didn't need translation. What's the play? Wire asked. We gather evidence, medical records, digital footprints, witness statements. We build a case so airtight that woman never sees daylight again. Spectre looked around the room. And we do it legally, carefully, by the book. Because if we screw this up, she walks, and that girl goes back into her custody. The door opened. Marcus walked in carrying Lily, who was wrapped in a blanket, but awake now. Her eyes went wide at the crowd of men, massive, intimidating, covered in leather and tattoos. She pressed closer to her father. Medic moved first. He walked over slowly, non-threatening, and crouched down to her eye level. Hey there, I'm Medic. I'm a friend of your dad's. Lily looked at Marcus. He nodded. Hi, she whispered. I heard you haven't been feeling good. Can you tell me where it hurts? Lily's hand moved to her stomach automatically. Here. All the time, especially after I drink my vitamin shakes. Medic kept his face neutral, but his eyes flickered to Spectre. Does it hurt more after the shakes? Lily nodded. But Stephanie says that means they're working, that my body is pushing out bad things. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus's grip on his daughter tightened. His jaw was clenched so hard Rita could see the muscle jumping. Lily, Spectre said gently, stepping forward. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Everything you just told us is important. It's going to help us make sure you never feel sick like that again. Do you understand? Lily looked at her father again. He was crying, silent tears streaming down his face. She'd never seen her daddy cry before. Daddy, Marcus knelt, setting her on her feet, but keeping his hands on her shoulders. It's true, baby girl. We should have figured it out sooner. I should have. His voice broke. But it ends now. What about Stephanie? The fear in her voice wasn't the fear of missing someone. It was the fear of what she'd do if she found out they knew. She's never going to hurt you again, Spectre said. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I promise you that. Lily studied his face. Whatever she saw there must have convinced her. Okay. Medic, Spectre turned to David. Take her to Dr. Eleanor Vance, independent pediatric specialist completely outside the hospital system. We need blood work. We need documentation. We need proof of what's in her system. Medic nodded. On it. Scholar, I need emergency custody paperwork drafted. Restraining orders. Everything ready to file the second we have enough evidence. Already outlining it in my head. Wire get into their home network. Browser history. Purchase records. Financial documents. Anything that shows intent. If she left a digital trail, I'll find it. What about the rest of us? Elder asked. Protection detail. Nobody gets near that kid without going through us first. And we start canvassing. Neighbors, friends, anyone who might have seen something. Spectre paused. I also want to know if this woman has a history, if she's done this before. Marcus's head snapped up. Before, $400,000 policy, professional execution, this level of planning. Spectre met his eyes. People don't wake up one day and decide to poison a child. They work up to it. The implication hung in the air. She was married before, Marcus said slowly. Her husband died 3 years ago. Heart attack, she said. He was 42. Scholar pulled out his phone and started typing. Name, Daniel Reeves. I'll pull the death certificate. Autopsy report if there was one. Insurance records. Spectre nodded. Do it. He looked around the room at 63 men in leather men whose appearance made suburban parents lock their car doors, men whose history included coaching, little league mentoring, at-risk youth volunteering at children's hospitals. Listen up. This is not a revenge mission. This is a rescue operation. We gather evidence. We protect the victim. We work with law enforcement, not against them. Anyone who can't follow those rules, leave now. Nobody moved. All right, then. Spectre pulled a marker from his pocket and turned to the whiteboard behind him. Here's how we take down a child killer without becoming criminals ourselves. Medic drove Lily to Dr. Vance's home office at 10:15 p.m. Eleanor Vance, 61 years old, had been a pediatric specialist for 35 years. She'd seen everything. Abuse cases that haunted her dreams. Miraculous recoveries that restored her faith. The full spectrum of what adults could do to children, both beautiful and horrifying. She'd also been a club friend for 15 years, ever since her own daughter had been helped by Hell's Angels after a stalker ex-boyfriend made her life a nightmare. She met them at the door in scrubs, already pulling on gloves. Tell me everything. Medic explained, while Dr. Vance led Lily to an examination room decorated with butterflies and sunshine. The contrast between the cheerful decor and the gaunt little girl sitting on the table was almost too much to bear. Lily, I'm Dr. Vance. I'm going to check you out and take some blood, okay? It'll pinch a little, but I'll be as gentle as I can. Okay? The examination was thorough. Weight 52 pounds, heart rate elevated, blood pressure low, eyes yellowing slightly, skin papery dehydrated, hair thinning at the temples. When did the symptoms start? Dr. Vance asked, keeping her voice light as she prepared the blood draw. I don't remember exactly. Maybe last November. And what happens when you get sick? I throw up, a lot. Sometimes my stomach hurts so bad I can't move. Sometimes I'm so dizzy I fall down. Does anything make it better? Lily thought about it. When I stay at Grandpa's house, I feel better. Stephanie says it's because the country air is good for me. Medic and Dr. Vance exchanged a look. How often do you stay at Grandpa's? Maybe once a month? Sometimes more if Daddy has to work. And you feel better there? Yeah, I can eat and everything, but then when I come home I get sick again. Dr. Vance drew 3 vials of blood, labeling each one carefully. Lily, you're being very brave. I'm going to run some tests on this blood. It might take a few hours, but I promise I'll figure out what's making you sick. Stephanie says the doctors already tried everything. Different doctors sometimes find different answers. At 2:30 a.m., Dr. Vance called Spectre. Her voice was shaking. I found it. Emetine. It's the toxic compound in ipecac syrup. Her levels indicate chronic exposure over at least 4 months. Spectre closed his eyes. How bad? Bad. Liver enzymes elevated, kidney function compromised, early cardiac damage. Dr. Vance's voice cracked. If this had continued another month, maybe 6 weeks, she would have gone into organ failure. You're sure? I'm positive. This is deliberate poisoning, systematic, calculated, and whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Spectre opened his eyes, looked across the clubhouse at Marcus, who was staring at his phone, waiting for news. Document everything. Every test result, every symptom, every marker. I need language that will hold up in court. Already done. And Vincent, Dr. Vance's voice hardened. Find the person who did this. Find them and make sure they never touch another child. That's the plan. Spectre ended the call. He walked over to Marcus, who looked up with terror in his eyes. Is she? She's going to be okay. We caught it in time. The relief that washed over Marcus's face was painful to witness. But we have proof now, Spectre continued. Toxic levels of emetine in her blood. That's the active ingredient in ipecac. Someone has been giving it to her for months. Marcus's relief curdled into rage. Stephanie. We're going to prove it, and when we do, I want to be there. I want to look her in the eye and ask her why. Why she would do this to an 8-year-old child who never did anything but try to love her. Spectre put a hand on his shoulder. You'll get that chance. But first we build the case. First we make sure she can never hurt anyone again. Marcus nodded. His hands were shaking again, but not with fear this time. With rage. With purpose. With the cold, calculated fury of a father who'd finally found the monster hiding in his own home. Then let's build the case. At 4:00 a.m., Wire looked up from his laptop with an expression that made everyone in the room stop talking. You need to see this. The browser history from Stephanie's laptop painted a picture of premeditated murder. Search after search dating back 14 months. Ipecac syrup dosage children. Chronic poisoning symptoms pediatric. Life insurance payout timeline. Undetectable poisons children. Can autopsy detect emetine after death? Marcus read each entry with a face carved from stone. There's more. Wire pulled up another screen. Credit card purchases. 3 bottles of ipecac syrup from an online pharmacy over the past year. A book called Quiet Killers: A History of Domestic Poisoning. And, he hesitated. What? Text messages. Between Stephanie and someone saved in her phone as D. Wire turned the laptop so everyone could see. The conversation was dated 3 weeks ago. Stephanie doctors talking organ failure. Maybe 6 more weeks. D. You sure about the timeline? Stephanie. Yes. Small doses nobody suspects. They think it's Crohn's or autoimmune. D. And the payout, Stephanie, $400K. Plus I get the house. D. When Stephanie kid won't make it to spring, then we wait 6 months. I play grieving stepmom, file for divorce, and we're set. The silence in the room was absolute. Marcus made a sound, a raw, wounded noise that didn't sound human. His daughter, his 8-year-old daughter, discussed like a problem to be solved, given a death date like an expiration stamp on meat. "Who's D?" Elder's voice was hard as granite. Wire was already running the number. "Derek Simmons, 41, lives in Cincinnati. Previous relationship with Stephanie looks like they dated before she married Daniel Reeves. Her first husband. Yeah, the one who died of a heart attack at 42. Scholar looked up from his phone. "I've got the records on Daniel Reeves. Death certificate lists cardiac arrest. No autopsy was performed. The attending physician ruled it natural causes. But there's a police report from 6 months before his death. His sister Eleanor Reeves filed a complaint alleging that Stephanie was doing something to her brother. She couldn't prove it. Investigation was dropped." "Did she get anything from his death?" Scholar's jaw tightened. $200,000 life insurance policy, paid out in full. The pattern was clear now. Crystal clear. Stephanie Cole wasn't just a woman who'd decided to kill her stepdaughter for money. She was a serial killer who'd done this before, and she'd almost gotten away with it twice. "We need Elena Reeves," Spectre said. "Tonight, before word gets out, and Stephanie rabbits." "I've got her number," Scholar said. "Call her. Tell her we're reopening her brother's case, and tell her—" Spectre looked at Marcus, at the shattered father who'd just discovered the woman he'd married was a monster. "Tell her she was right. About all of it." Marcus didn't move. Didn't speak. He just stared at the laptop screen, at the text messages planning his daughter's murder, at the cold calculation of the woman who'd slept beside him for 14 months. Then slowly his hands curled into fists. "I trusted her," he whispered. "I brought her into our home, into Lily's life." "You didn't know." Spectre's voice was firm. "She's good at this. That's why she's gotten away with it. My daughter almost died because I was too blind to see. Your daughter is alive because you listened when someone told you the truth. A lot of people wouldn't have. A lot of people would have defended their wife, accused the waitress of being crazy, taken their kid home, and never looked back." Spectre gripped his shoulder. "You believed. You acted. And now Stephanie Cole is going to spend the rest of her life in prison because you had the courage to face the truth." Marcus looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed, but the weakness was burning away. "I want to be there when they arrest her." "You will be. I want her to know it was me, that her husband, the man she thought she'd fooled, was the one who brought her down. She'll know." Marcus nodded once. "Then let's finish this." Outside, the sun was starting to rise. In less than 12 hours, Stephanie Cole's carefully constructed world would come crashing down around her, and 180 Hell's Angels would make sure she never hurt another child again. The call to Elena Reeves went through at 4:47 a.m. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. "Hello. Ms. Reeves, my name is Vincent Torres. I'm investigating the death of your brother Daniel." Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Who is this really? I used to be a detective with Franklin County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling because I believe the woman who killed your brother is about to kill again, and I need your help to stop her." Elena didn't speak for 10 seconds. When she did, her voice had changed. Harder. Colder. The voice of someone who'd been waiting 3 years for this call. "Stephanie." "Yes. She's doing it again. Her stepdaughter, 8 years old. We pulled her out tonight. She's alive, but barely." Elena made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. I knew it. For 3 years I've been telling anyone who would listen that she killed Danny, and nobody believed me. The police said I was grieving, The insurance company said the policy was legitimate. Even my own mother told me to let it go. I believe you. Who are you, really? Someone with the resources to prove it this time, and the will to see it through. Another pause. What do you need from me? Everything. Every document you saved. Every suspicion. Every detail you remember about your brother's illness before he died. I have boxes, Elena said. 3 boxes of files I've been keeping in my closet because I couldn't let it go. Autopsy report, insurance paperwork, medical bills, the police report I filed that went nowhere. Can you bring them to Columbus? I can be there in 3 hours. I'll text you the address. Mr. Torres, yeah. Elena's voice cracked. Thank you for believing me. You have no idea what it means to finally have someone believe me. Spectre looked across the room at Marcus, at the man who was about to learn that his wife had killed before. I think I do. He ended the call. Marcus was watching him. She knew. The sister knew the whole time. She suspected, tried to investigate, got shut down at every turn. Spectre sat down across from him. Reaper, what I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear. Harder than finding out my wife's been poisoning my daughter for money. Different hard. Marcus's jaw tightened. Just say it. Elena Reeves filed a complaint with police 6 months before her brother died. She told them Stephanie was doing something to him. He'd been having episodes, weakness, vomiting, heart palpitations. Marcus closed his eyes. The investigation went nowhere. Her brother died of cardiac arrest 4 months later. No autopsy. Attending physician ruled it natural causes. Because the wife was right there, Marcus said bitterly. Crying, grieving, playing the part. Because that's what she does. That's who she is. Spectre leaned forward. But here's the thing, Elena saved everything. 3 boxes of documentation. If there's anything that connects the 2 cases, proves a pattern, we'll find it in those files. And if we don't, then we use what we have. The toxicology on Lily, the text messages, the browser history, the purchase records, Rita's photographs and testimony. We've got enough to put her away for attempted murder right now. But if we can prove she killed Daniel Reeves too, life without parole. Exactly. Marcus opened his eyes. Something had shifted in them. The grief was still there, but buried now beneath something colder, harder. The focus of a man who'd found his purpose. 3 hours until Elena gets here. Give or take. What do we do until then? Spectre stood. We hit the house. Every document, every file, every hiding spot she thinks we don't know about. If Stephanie kept trophies records, anything that ties her to Daniel's death, it's there. She doesn't know yet. That we know. Which means we have a window. Small one. She'll figure out something's wrong when you don't come home tonight, but she won't know how much we know. We use that. Marcus stood too. Then let's go. The drive to 1247 Birchwood Lane took 18 minutes. Marcus rode with Spectre. Behind them, a convoy of 12 motorcycles carried the search team men who'd been trained to look for things others missed, to document evidence that would hold up in court, to move through a space without leaving traces. The house was dark when they arrived. Stephanie's shift at the nursing home didn't end until 6 a.m. They had just over an hour. Marcus unlocked the front door with hands that shook only slightly. Where would she keep important documents? Scholar asked. Filing cabinet in the office. But she has a lockbox too. Keeps it in the closet. Says it's for jewelry, but she's always weird about it when I ask. Show me. The lockbox was small, fireproof, hidden behind a rack of designer shoes. Marcus didn't know the combination. Wire stepped forward. Move. 60 seconds of focused work, and the lock clicked open. Inside, they found the life insurance policy on Lily. $400,000, taken out 11 months ago. Beneficiaries Marcus Cole and Stephanie Cole, 50-50, split. They also found a second policy. This one was older, yellowed, worn at the edges. Daniel Reeves, $200,000. Beneficiary Stephanie Reeves. Payout date 3 years ago. She kept it, Scholar said quietly. She kept the policy from her first victim. Trophy, Elder growled. Like a serial killer keeping souvenirs. Marcus stared at the document. His wife. The woman he'd made love to, shared meals with, trusted with his daughter. She'd been carrying proof of her first murder around for 3 years. There's more. Wire had moved to the filing cabinet. Come look at this. A folder labeled Medical. Inside, meticulous records, doctor visits, test results, symptom logs, and beneath all of it, a handwritten journal. Wire opened it at random and read aloud. November 14th, 0.5 ml this morning in orange juice. Vomiting began at 8:47. Duration 23 minutes. She complained of stomach pain at school. Teacher called. Played concerned stepmother. Appointment scheduled with pediatric gastro. Marcus made a sound like he'd been kicked. December 3rd. Increased to 0.75 milliliters, faster response time. Note she's getting weaker. Less resistance. Good. Stop. Marcus's voice was barely human. Stop reading. Wire closed the journal. There's entries going back to last October, right after the life insurance policy was taken out. She documented everything. Scholar's voice was hollow, like it was a science experiment. Spectre took the journal carefully, holding it by the edges. This is premeditation. This is intent. This is a woman who planned the murder of a child and wrote it all down. Why? Marcus asked. Why would she keep records? Some killers do it because they're arrogant. They think they'll never get caught, so they keep proof of their cleverness. Spectre looked at him. And some do it because they're planning to do it again. To learn from each kill. To get better at it. The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. After Lily, she would have found someone else. Married them. Started over. Spectre's jaw was tight. You weren't her second target, Reaper. You were her second test run. Daniel Reeves was the first. How many more? Marcus whispered. How many more would there have been? Nobody answered. They didn't have to. At 6:23 a.m., Stephanie Cole clocked out of her shift at Riverside Nursing Home. She checked her phone as she walked to her car. No messages from Marcus. Strange. He usually texted goodnight. She tried calling. Straight to voicemail. She tried the house phone. No answer. A flicker of unease. Then she pushed it down. Probably fell asleep early. Lily had been particularly sick last night. Marcus was probably exhausted from dealing with her. Poor baby. Stephanie smiled slightly as she climbed into her BMW. That little girl had been so much more fragile than Daniel. It was almost disappointing how easy it had been. 6 more weeks, she estimated. Maybe less. The liver was already compromised. Once she got the dosage dialed in perfectly, the final stage would happen fast. Organ failure looked so natural in a child who'd been chronically ill. The doctors would be sad. Marcus would be devastated. And Stephanie would be $200,000 richer, her half of the policy, with a grieving husband who'd need comfort and support. Then the divorce. 18 months, maybe 2 years. Enough time to look respectable. Then Derek. She'd already picked out the next target. A widower in Kentucky with a 7-year-old son and a trust fund from his late wife. Easy mark. Lonely. desperate for someone to help him raise his boy. Some women collected shoes. Stephanie collected life insurance policies. She pulled out of the nursing home parking lot, already planning her next move. She had no idea that everything was about to end. Eleanor Reeves arrived at Devil's Forge at 7:41 a.m. She was 52 years old, gray threading through her dark hair circles under her eyes that spoke of 3 years of sleepless nights. She carried 2 boxes in her arms, a third balanced precariously on top. Marcus met her at the door. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 2 people destroyed by the same woman. 2 families shattered by the same monster. "You're Lily's father," Elena said. "Yeah." "Is she okay?" "She will be. Because of you." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I tried to warn people about Danny. I told everyone who would listen that something was wrong. Nobody believed me. I believe you now." She set down the boxes with shaking hands. 3 years. I've been carrying this for 3 years, hoping someone would finally listen. And now, her voice broke. Marcus stepped forward and hugged her. This stranger. This woman who'd lost her brother the same way he'd almost lost his daughter. They stood there at the doorway of a biker clubhouse, 2 people bound together by grief and rage and the desperate need for justice. "We're going to get her," Marcus said. "I promise you. We're going to get her for both of them." Elena pulled back, wiped her eyes, and her face hardened. "Then let's get started." The boxes contained 3 years of obsession. Medical records from Daniel's last 6 months, blood work that showed declining liver function, doctor's notes expressing confusion about his symptoms, a pattern that looked exactly like Lily's. Insurance documents, the policy taken out 14 months before his death, the payout processed just 3 weeks after. Police reports, Elena's complaint, the investigator's dismissive notes, case closed due to lack of evidence, and photographs. Daniel Reeves, healthy and smiling from the year before he married Stephanie. Daniel Reeves, 6 months into the marriage, looking tired and thin. Daniel Reeves, 2 months before his death, gaunt and hollow-eyed, propped up in a hospital bed, while Stephanie stood beside him with a concerned expression. "She did the same thing," Elena said, spreading the photos across the table. "The same pattern. He was healthy when they met. Then he started getting sick. Doctors couldn't figure out why. She played the devoted wife, brought him special meals, gave him supplements she said would help." "Did you ever see her add anything to his food?" Scholar asked. "Once." Elena's voice was quiet. "About a month before he died. I stopped by unannounced, and I saw her putting drops from a little bottle into his tea. When I asked what it was, she said it was an herbal supplement, milk thistle for his liver." "Did you tell anyone?" "The police. They said herbal supplements weren't evidence of murder." Medic was reviewing the medical records, comparing them to Lily's. "The progression is almost identical. Gradual onset. Gastrointestinal symptoms. Liver involvement. If I didn't know better, I'd say she was following a script." "She was." Spector held up the journal they'd found at the house. "She kept notes, learned from the first one, made adjustments for the second." Elena stared at the journal. She wrote it down, every dose, every symptom, every doctor's appointment. Elena's face crumpled. "For 3 years I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just crazy with grief, seeing patterns that weren't there. Maybe Danny really did just have a heart attack." She looked at Spector with tears streaming down her cheeks. "I wasn't wrong." "No, you weren't. She killed my brother. Yes, and we're going to prove it." At 9:15 a.m., Detective Maria Santos received a phone call from an old colleague. She was at her desk, buried in paperwork from a string of car thefts that had been plaguing the East Side. The last thing she expected was Vincent Torres's voice on the other end. "Spectre. What the hell you dropped off the face of the earth 3 years ago?" "I found something, Maria. Something big. And I need you to trust me." Santos leaned back in her chair. She and Vincent had worked together for 8 years before he walked away from the badge. Good cop. Better detective. The kind of partner who'd take a bullet for you and never mention it again. "Talk to me." "Attempted murder. Child victim. 8 years old. Perpetrator is the stepmother. I have toxicology. I have digital evidence. I have witness testimony. And I have a paper trail connecting her to a previous homicide that was ruled natural causes." Santos sat up straight. "Jesus Christ. I need you to meet me. Bring a warrant team. We're going to make an arrest today and I want it done right." "Where?" Spectre gave her the address. 1 hour. And Vincent, this better be as solid as you say it is." "It's solid. Trust me." Santos hung up and grabbed her jacket. Whatever Vincent Torres had found, it was about to ruin someone's day. At 10:47 a.m., Stephanie Cole pulled into her driveway. Something felt wrong. Marcus's truck was gone. That wasn't unusual. He could be at work or running errands. But the house had an empty feeling. A stillness that made her skin prickle. She checked her phone again. Still no response to her texts. No returned calls. Unease coiled in her stomach. She unlocked the front door and stepped inside. "Marcus Lilly." Silence. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she moved through the living room. Everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. But something was different. Something she couldn't quite identify. Then she saw it. The filing cabinet in the office. The drawer that was always locked. It was closed, but not quite flush. Someone had been inside. Stephanie's heart stuttered. She crossed to the bedroom closet with quick, sharp steps, pulled back the rack of shoes. The lockbox was there, but the lock was open. She yanked it toward her hands, shaking, and threw back the lid. Empty. The insurance policies, the documents, all of it, gone. Stephanie stood very still. For 30 seconds, she didn't move, didn't breathe. Her mind raced through possibilities, scenarios, escape routes. Marcus knew. Somehow impossibly Marcus knew. How she'd been so careful, so patient. Every detail planned, every contingency considered. How had he... The waitress. Stephanie's eyes widened. Last night, at the diner, the waitress who'd been hovering near their booth, the one who'd looked at her strangely when she added the supplement to Lily's smoothie. That interfering bitch had seen something, and now everything was falling apart. Stephanie's first instinct was to run, get in the car, drive to Derek's, figure out what to do from there. They had money saved, fake IDs prepared for exactly this scenario. They could be in Mexico by tomorrow if they moved fast. But first, she needed to know how bad it was. She pulled out her phone and called Derek. He didn't answer. She tried again. Voicemail. Something cold settled in Stephanie's chest. She tried a third time, and this time a stranger's voice answered. "This is Detective Harrison, Cincinnati PD. Who am I speaking with?" Stephanie hung up immediately. Her hands were shaking now. Really shaking. They had Derek, which meant they knew about the texts, which meant they knew about the plan, which meant she had to run, right now, this second. Stephanie grabbed her purse and headed for the door. She made it 3 steps onto the front porch before she saw them. 4 police cruisers, lights flashing, blocking the driveway, the street, every possible exit. And behind them, like a wall of chrome and leather and controlled fury, 180 motorcycles. Stephanie froze. Detective Maria Santos stepped out of the lead car, weapon drawn, but pointed at the ground. Stephanie Marie Cole, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Lily Marie Cole, conspiracy to commit murder, child endangerment, and insurance fraud. You have the right to remain silent. This is a mistake. Stephanie's voice came out high and thin. I don't know what you think happened, but I would never hurt Lily. She's my daughter. I love her. Ma'am, put your hands behind your back. Where's Marcus? I need to talk to my husband. He'll tell you, hands behind your back, now. The handcuffs clicked into place. Stephanie turned, looking for a sympathetic face, someone she could manipulate, someone she could fool. Her eyes found Marcus. He was standing beside the lead motorcycle, arms crossed, face carved from granite. Lily was beside him, thin and pale, but alive, wrapped in a blanket and held close by a man in leather with patches on his vest. Stephanie's mask slipped. For just a second, the loving stepmother was gone. In her place was something else, something cold and reptilian and filled with fury. You can't prove anything, she hissed at Marcus. Whatever you think you know. We found the journal. Marcus's voice was flat. Empty. Every dose, every symptom, every plan you made to kill my daughter. Stephanie's face went white. We found the text messages to Derek, the browser history, the IPCAC purchases. Marcus stepped closer. And we found the policy on Daniel Reeves, the man you killed 3 years ago, the man whose sister has been waiting all this time for someone to believe her. Elena Reeves stepped out from behind one of the cruisers. Stephanie saw her and flinched. Remember me? Elena's voice shook with 3 years of rage. Remember how you told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that my brother's death was just a tragedy, and I needed to let it go. Elena, I don't know what lies they've told you. You killed him? Elena's voice broke. You killed my brother for money and then you started all over again with her. She pointed at Lily. An 8-year-old girl, a child. This is insane. I'm a nurse. I help children. I would never... You documented it. Spectre stepped forward, holding up an evidence bag with the journal inside. Every dose of Ipecac, every symptom you observed, every appointment you scheduled to make yourself look like a concerned parent. You wrote it all down like you were proud of it. Stephanie stared at the journal, at the neat handwriting that was unmistakably hers, at the evidence that would send her to prison for the rest of her life. And finally, the mask dropped completely. She was supposed to be dead by Christmas. Her voice had gone flat. Cold. 6 more weeks and it would have been over. Natural causes. Grieving family. Clean payout? She looked at Marcus with something like contempt. You were so easy to fool. Just like Daniel. So desperate to believe that someone could love you that you never asked questions. Marcus didn't react. Didn't flinch. Didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing how much her words hurt. You're done, he said simply. And you're never going to hurt anyone again. Stephanie laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. You think this is the end? My lawyer will tear your evidence apart. Illegal search. Tainted witnesses. I'll be out in 6 months and then you'll face murder charges in the death of Daniel Reeves. Detective Santos's voice cut through her ranting. We're reopening that case with new evidence. Exhumation orders already being filed. For the first time, real fear flickered across Stephanie's face. No, you can't. Already done. Santos nodded to the officers behind her. Get her out of here. They put Stephanie in the back of the cruiser. She was still talking, still protesting, still insisting she was innocent. But the words had lost their power. Nobody was listening anymore. Marcus watched the cruiser pull away. Lily tugged at his hand. "Daddy?" He looked down at his daughter, at her thin face and hollow cheeks and eyes that held too much knowledge for an 8-year-old. "Is she gone?" "Yeah, baby girl. She's gone." "Is she coming back?" Marcus knelt down and gathered Lily into his arms, held her close, felt her heart beating against his chest, weak but steady alive, because a waitress had paid attention, and a group of bikers had decided a child's life mattered more than their reputation. "Never," he whispered. "She's never coming back." Lily buried her face in his shoulder, and for the first time in months, she didn't apologize for crying. The arraignment happened 3 days later. Marcus sat in the front row of the courtroom, Lily beside him, her small hand wrapped tight around his fingers. She'd insisted on coming, said she needed to see it, needed to know that Stephanie was really going to be punished for what she'd done. Dr. Chen, her trauma therapist, had advised against it. Too soon, she'd said. Too much for a child to process. But Lily had looked at Marcus with those huge brown eyes and said, "I need to see her in the cage, Daddy. I need to know she can't get out." So here they were. Stephanie entered through the side door in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. She looked different without the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Smaller, older. The fluorescent lights caught every line on her face, every shadow under her eyes. She scanned the courtroom and found Marcus immediately. For 1 second, her mask slipped back into place. The wounded wife. The falsely accused, the victim of a terrible misunderstanding. Then she saw Lily, and something ugly flickered across her face before she could stop it. Lily flinched. Marcus pulled her closer. "She can't hurt you anymore. She's behind glass now. She can't touch you." "I know." Lily's voice was small but steady. "I just wanted her to see me, to know I'm still here." The judge entered. Everyone rose. Marcus kept his eyes on Stephanie as the charges were read. Attempted murder in the 1st degree. Conspiracy to commit murder. Child endangerment. Insurance fraud. And pending the results of the exhumation murder in the 1st degree for the death of Daniel Reeves. Stephanie pleaded not guilty to all charges. Of course she did. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, argued for bail. His client was a respected healthcare professional. No flight risk. Strong ties to the community. The prosecutor laughed. Actually laughed. "Your Honor, the defendant documented her crimes in a handwritten journal. She researched lethal dosages. She texted her accomplice about the timeline for her victim's death. She's already killed once, and was weeks away from killing again." The prosecutor held up a thick folder. "We have toxicology reports showing lethal levels of emetine in the victim's blood. We have purchase records for ipecac syrup. We have browser history showing searches for undetectable poisons. And we have the defendant's own words in her own handwriting describing exactly how she planned to murder an 8-year-old child for insurance money." She set the folder down with a thud. "The state requests remand without bail." The judge didn't hesitate. "Bail denied. The defendant will be held pending trial." Stephanie's face went white. "You can't do this." Her voice rose, cracking the composed facade. "I'm innocent. This is all a setup. My husband and his biker gang are framing me because—" "That's enough, Ms. Cole. They broke into my house. They stole my property. Everything they have is inadmissible. That will be determined at trial." The judge's voice was ice. "Officers, remove the defendant." They took her through the side door. She was still shouting. Still protesting. still insisting that everyone had it wrong, that she was the victim, that Marcus and the Hells Angels had orchestrated everything. The door closed behind her, and the courtroom went quiet. Marcus exhaled. Lily looked up at him. "Is it over?" "The first part." He squeezed her hand. "There's still the trial. She'll try to fight it." "Will she win?" Marcus thought about the evidence, the journal, the texts, the toxicology, the witness testimony, Rita's photographs, Elena's documentation, Dr. Vance's medical records. "No, baby girl, she won't win." Lily nodded slowly. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She smiled. The exhumation order came through 4 days after the arraignment. Elena Reeves stood at the edge of the cemetery, watching strangers dig up her brother's grave. She'd waited 3 years for this moment, prayed for it, dreamed about it. And now that it was happening, she felt nothing but empty. Marcus stood beside her. He hadn't known Daniel, had no reason to be there except that he understood. They were both victims of the same woman, bound together by a grief that would never fully heal. "I used to come here every Sunday," Elena said quietly. "Bring flowers. Talk to him. Tell him I was still fighting." She paused. "The last year I started coming less. Started wondering if maybe everyone was right. Maybe I was just crazy with grief. Maybe I'd invented the whole thing because I couldn't accept that my healthy, strong, perfect brother had just died." "You weren't crazy." "No, I wasn't." Elena's voice hardened. "She killed him. And now everyone will know." The forensic team worked in silence, professional, methodical. When the coffin emerged from the ground, Elena made a sound that wasn't quite a sob. 3 years, she whispered. 3 years he's been lying there while she walked free, while she found another family to destroy. Marcus didn't know what to say, so he just stood there, present, witnessing. The coffin was loaded into a van and taken to the medical examiner's office. 3 days later, the results came back. Potassium chloride, lethal levels, the same substance used in lethal injections, the same substance a nursing home employee would have easy access to. Daniel Reeves hadn't died of a heart attack. He'd been murdered. And now finally there was proof. Spector delivered the news to Marcus at the clubhouse. They found it. Same pattern as Lily, different poison. She started with potassium chloride, switched to ipecac when she realized it was harder to detect. He handed Marcus the report. "The prosecutor is filing amended charges. Murder 1. If convicted, she's looking at life without parole." Marcus stared at the document. The words blurred. 2 victims, he said. 2 families destroyed. And she would have kept going. "Yes." "How many more if we hadn't stopped her? How many more families would she have?" His voice broke. Spector gripped his shoulder. "We did stop her. That's what matters. Because a waitress noticed a pattern." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A waitress. Not the doctors, not the police, not me. A woman making $8 an hour paying attention to my daughter when I was too blind to see what was happening right in front of me. You weren't blind. You were targeted. That's what predators do. They find people who trust, and they use that trust as a weapon. I brought her into Lily's life. I gave her access. You believed your wife loved your daughter. That's not a character flaw. That's being human." Marcus set down the report, looked at Spector with eyes that had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "She told me once that she'd always wanted to be a mother, that Lily was the daughter she'd never had. She cried when she said it." He paused. "Was any of it real? Any of it at all?" Spector considered the question. He'd dealt with predators before. In his years as a detective, he'd interrogated men and women who'd done terrible things without a flicker of remorse. He knew the answer Marcus was looking for. He also knew it wouldn't help. Does it matter? Marcus blinked. What? Whether she felt something real at some point. Whether there was a moment of genuine emotion buried under all the calculation. Does it change anything? Does it bring back Daniel Reeves? Does it undo what she did to Lily? No. Then let it go. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to understand a person like that. Trying to find the humanity in someone who traded a child's life for insurance money. Spector's voice softened. Focus on Lily. On her recovery. On being the father she needs. That's where your energy belongs. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. You're right. I know you're right. It's just... He stopped. Started again. Lily asked me yesterday if Stephanie ever loved her, even a little bit. She asked me if maybe she did something wrong, if maybe she wasn't lovable enough for Stephanie to want to keep her alive. Spector felt something twist in his chest. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that Stephanie is broken inside, that she's incapable of loving anyone except herself, that nothing Lily did or didn't do made any difference because Stephanie was never going to love her no matter what. Marcus's jaw tightened. But she's 8 years old. She shouldn't have to understand that kind of evil exists. She shouldn't have to know that the woman who tucked her in at night was counting down the days until she died. No, she shouldn't. How do I help her through this? How do I explain to my daughter that she was worth more dead than alive to someone who promised to take care of her? You don't explain it. You show her. Every day. By being there. By loving her. By proving through your actions that she matters, that she's valued, that her life has worth beyond what anyone could profit from her death. Spector met his eyes. That's all you can do. That's all any of us can do. Marcus absorbed this. Then he straightened. Squared his shoulders. The grief was still there, but beneath it, something else. Resolve. The trial starts in 6 weeks. I know. I want every brother who worked this case there. Front row. I want her to see exactly how many people it took to stop her. I want her to understand that she didn't just mess with my daughter. She messed with a family of 180 men who don't forget. Spector nodded slowly. You'll have them. Every single one. Rita Delgado received the subpoena on a Tuesday. She was at work 3 tables deep in the lunch rush when a man in a suit walked in and asked for her by name. Rita Delgado. That's me. He handed her the envelope. You've been called as a witness for the prosecution in the case of State of Ohio versus Stephanie Marie Cole. Trial date is January 15th. Rita stared at the document. This was really happening. She was going to have to sit in a courtroom and tell everyone what she'd seen. The photographs, the pattern, the 12 minutes between the smoothie and the bathroom. Her hands were shaking. Cookie appeared at her shoulder. Rita, what is it? I have to testify, at the trial. The poisoning case. The little girl. Rita nodded. Cookie took the envelope from her hands, read the document carefully, then looked up with something like pride in her eyes. You need time off, you take it. I'll cover your shifts. Cookie, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling. Cookie's voice was firm. You saved that little girl's life, Rita. You did what most people would have been too scared to do. And now you're going to help put the woman who hurt her in prison for the rest of her life. That's more important than the lunch rush. Rita felt tears prick her eyes. What if I freeze up? What if I get on the stand and forget everything? You won't. What if her lawyer tears me apart? What if they make me look crazy or stupid or... Rita! Cookie gripped her shoulders. Look at me. You know what you saw. You documented it. You took pictures. You told the truth when it would have been easier to stay quiet. That's courage. Real courage. And nothing that lawyer says can take that away from you. Rita took a breath. Then another. Okay, I can do this. Yes, you can. The phone in Rita's apron buzzed. She pulled it out and saw Marcus Cole's name. Hello. Rita, it's Marcus. I heard you got subpoenaed. Just now. I'm still processing. I know it's scary. I know you didn't sign up for any of this, but I wanted to thank you again. For everything. His voice was rough. Lily's doing better. Gained 4 pounds this week. She's sleeping through the night. She laughed yesterday. Really laughed. First time in months. Rita pressed her hand to her mouth. That's because of you, Marcus continued. Because you paid attention when nobody else did. Because you cared about a stranger's daughter enough to risk your job, your reputation, everything. Rita's voice cracked. I couldn't watch her die. I couldn't just stand there and let it happen. Most people could. Most people do. They see something wrong and they look the other way because it's easier, because it's not their problem, because they're afraid of what might happen if they get involved. Marcus paused. You didn't look away. And my daughter is alive because of it. Rita wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'll be at the trial, she said. I'll tell them everything. Every detail. Every pattern. Everything I saw. I know you will. And Marcus, tell Lily I'm proud of her. Tell her she's the bravest kid I've ever met. I'll tell her. Rita hung up and looked at Cookie, who was pretending not to have heard every word. I need to take my break early. Take all the time you need. Rita walked out the back door, leaned against the wall, and cried. Not sad tears. Relief. Pride. The overwhelming emotion of having done something that mattered. For once in her life, she had done something that truly, genuinely mattered. Derek Simmons broke 2 weeks before the trial. The plea deal had been on the table for a month. Testify against Stephanie. Provide detailed information about the conspiracy, accept a reduced sentence of 15 years instead of the 30 he was facing. He'd refused. Insisted Stephanie would find a way out. She always did. Then his lawyer showed him the amended charges. Murder 1 for Daniel Reeves. The text messages. The journal. The toxicology. The mountain of evidence that was going to bury both of them. And Derek Simmons finally understood that Stephanie Cole wasn't going to save him. She was going to drag him down with her. I want the deal, he told his lawyer. I'll tell them everything. The deposition took 6 hours. Derek laid out the entire plan. How he and Stephanie had met 15 years ago. How they'd talked about getting rich together, finding marks running long cons. How Stephanie had discovered that marriage was the perfect vehicle for fraud because nobody suspected a wife. Daniel Reeves had been her first test. A lonely widower with a decent life insurance policy and no family paying close attention. Stephanie had married him, spent a year building trust, then started the slow process of killing him with potassium chloride stolen from her nursing job. She called it the long game, Derek said. Said the key was patience, was gradual symptoms that looked like natural illness. Build up the concerned wife act. Then when they finally died, nobody asked questions. And Marcus Cole? Bigger target? Hell's Angel with a house paid off and a kid who was easy to access. Derek's voice was flat, detached, like he was describing a business transaction. The plan was the same. Marry him. Gain access to the daughter. Take out a policy. Wait a year. Start the process. What process? IPCAC. She switched from potassium chloride because it's harder to detect in an autopsy. Small doses over months. The kid gets sick, nobody knows why doctors run tests and find nothing. Eventually the organs fail, and she dies. Derek shrugged. Clean, quiet, natural causes? And then, Stephanie collects her half of the policy, plays the grieving stepmom for a year or two, files for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. We meet up, split the money, move on to the next one. The prosecutor leaned forward. The next one? She had files on 6 more targets, widowers with kids, divorcees with custody, men who looked desperate enough to marry fast and not ask questions. Derek met her eyes. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a business, and she was good at it. The prosecutor felt sick. Did you help her select targets? Some of them. I did background checks, financial research, made sure they were worth the investment. The investment. Time, effort, marriage. It takes years to do this right. You don't want to waste that on someone with a $50,000 policy when you could get one with $500,000. The prosecutor set down her pen. Mr. Simmons, did it ever occur to you that you were planning the murder of children? Derek blinked. They were collateral. Collateral. The policies were on the kids, not the husbands. You take out a big policy on a spouse, someone asks questions. But on a kid, everybody understands that. Parents want to protect their children. It's normal. And killing them was normal too. For the first time, something flickered across Derek's face. Doubt. Maybe guilt. It was Stephanie's idea, all of it. I just helped with the planning. You texted about when the victim would die. You discussed timelines. You asked about payouts. I never touched those kids. Never. That was all her. The prosecutor stood. Your testimony has been recorded. You'll repeat it in court exactly as you've stated it here. If you deviate, if you try to change your story, the deal is off. Do you understand? I understand. And Mr. Simmons, I hope you spend every night for the next 15 years thinking about Lily Cole, about the little girl you helped plan to murder, about what it felt like for her to be sick and scared and not know why. I hope you never get a single peaceful night's sleep for the rest of your miserable life. Derek didn't respond. He didn't have to. She could already see it in his eyes. He'd made a deal with the devil, and now he was paying the price. The trial began on a gray January morning. Marcus arrived at the courthouse at 7 a.m., 2 hours before proceedings were scheduled to start. Lily was with his father, safe and protected. She'd wanted to come again, but Dr. Chen had finally put her foot down. The trial would take weeks. It would be brutal. It was no place for a child still recovering from trauma. Lily had cried. Then she'd nodded. Then she'd hugged Marcus and said, "Make sure she goes away forever, Daddy." He intended to. Spector met him on the courthouse steps. Behind him, a line of motorcycles stretched down the block. Men in leather. Women, too, some of them. 180 members of the Hells Angels and their families present to support one of their own. You ready? Spector asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. They walked in together. The courtroom was packed, media in the back rows, spectators who'd arrived early to claim seats for the trial of the year. The case had made national news. Woman accused of poisoning. Stepdaughter for insurance money. Same woman suspected in husband's death 3 years earlier. Hells Angels Motorcycle Club helps crack the case. The headlines had been sensational. The truth was worse. Marcus took his seat in the front row. Spector sat beside him. Medic, scholar, wire, elder, all of them arranged behind him in silent support. Then Stephanie entered. She'd cleaned up for trial, hairstyled, makeup perfect, a conservative blue dress that made her look like a PTA mom instead of a serial killer. She saw Marcus and smiled. Not a mocking smile, not a threatening smile. A warm, friendly, how nice to see you smile. The same smile she'd worn when she'd promised to love and cherish him until death did them part. Marcus's stomach turned. "Don't react," Spectre murmured. "That's what she wants. She's trying to get under your skin." "It's working. I know, but don't give her the satisfaction." Marcus forced himself to look away. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And the trial of Stephanie Marie Cole began. The prosecution's opening statement lasted 47 minutes. Assistant District Attorney Michelle Torres stood before the jury and laid out the case with surgical precision. The timeline, the evidence, the pattern of behavior that connected Stephanie Cole to not one but 2 attempted murders spanning 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear testimony that will disturb you. You're going to see evidence that will make you question how someone could do what the defendant did. But I want you to remember something throughout this trial. She paused, letting the silence build. The defendant is not a monster. She's not insane. She's not broken in some way that excuses her actions. Torres turned and looked directly at Stephanie. She's calculating. She's patient, she's methodical. And she almost got away with it, twice. Marcus watched Stephanie's face during the opening, looking for a crack, a flinch, some sign that the weight of what she'd done was registering. Nothing. She sat beside her lawyer with an expression of calm concern. The wrongly accused wife, the victim of circumstance. It made Marcus's skin crawl. The defense attorney's opening was shorter. 22 minutes of carefully constructed doubt. My client is a nurse, a healer, a woman who has dedicated her life to caring for the sick and the vulnerable. Patricia Whitmore's voice was warm, sympathetic. What the prosecution calls evidence we will show is circumstantial. What they call pattern we will show is coincidence. And what they call murder we will show is nothing more than a grieving family looking for someone to blame. She gestured toward the gallery where the Hell's Angels sat in rows of leather and chrome. You'll hear about bikers breaking into my client's home, about evidence collected without warrants, about a waitress with no medical training diagnosing a child based on timing and suspicion. Whitmore shook her head sadly. This case isn't about justice. It's about a husband who couldn't accept that his daughter was sick, so he found someone to punish. Marcus's jaw clenched so tight he thought his teeth might crack. Spectre put a hand on his arm. Easy. She's doing her job. Let the evidence speak. The first witness was Dr. Eleanor Vance. She walked to the stand with her medical files clutched against her chest. 61 years old, 35 years of experience, and she looked terrified. Torres approached her gently. Dr. Vance, can you describe what you found when you examined Lily Cole on the night of October 12th? Yes. Eleanor's voice steadied as she opened her files. The patient presented with severe malnutrition, dehydration, elevated liver enzymes, compromised kidney function, and early signs of cardiac muscle damage. Her weight was 52 pounds, significantly below normal for a child her age. And the blood work, toxic levels of emetione. That's the active compound in ipecac syrup. Eleanor looked at the jury. To be clear, this substance is not found naturally in the body. It can only be introduced externally, and the levels I found indicated chronic exposure over a period of at least 4 months. In your professional opinion, what would have happened if this exposure had continued? Organ failure, death, within weeks, possibly days. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. And could this exposure have been accidental? No. Eleanor's voice was firm now. Certain. The levels were too consistent, the timeline too specific. Someone was administering measured doses at regular intervals. This was deliberate poisoning. Whitmore's cross-examination was aggressive. Dr. Vance, you conducted this examination at your home office, correct? Yes. Not a hospital, not an accredited medical facility. Your home. I have a fully equipped examination room. I've been licensed for a simple yes or no, doctor. Yes. And you were contacted by the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club to perform this examination by Vincent Torres, an old friend. A Hells Angel. Eleanor hesitated. Yes. So a motorcycle club member called you in the middle of the night, asked you to examine a child without parental consent from both parents, and you agreed. The father gave consent. The mother was not consulted. The mother was not informed. The mother, my client, was at work caring for elderly patients, while her stepdaughter was being examined by a friend of motorcycle gang members. Whitmore let that hang in the air. No further questions. Marcus wanted to stand up and shout, wanted to explain that Stephanie wasn't Lily's mother, that she'd lost the right to be consulted when she started poisoning a child, that none of this procedural nonsense mattered because his daughter had been dying. He stayed silent. But his hands were shaking. Rita Delgado took the stand on the second day. She wore her nicest blouse, the one she saved for church and job interviews. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup minimal. She looked exactly like what she was, a working mother who'd gotten caught up in something extraordinary. Ms. Delgado, can you describe what you observed at Maple Street Diner on the evening of October 12th? Rita's voice trembled at first, then steadied. I saw Mrs. Cole add something to her stepdaughter's drink, a powder or liquid from a small amber bottle. She did it when she thought no one was looking. And what happened next? 12 minutes later, almost exactly, the little girl got sick, started throwing up, same as every other Wednesday night for the past 6 weeks. Torres approached the witness stand. You said same as every other Wednesday night. Can you explain? Rita nodded. They came in every Wednesday, same time, same booth, and every week Mrs. Cole brought something from home for Lily to drink. A smoothie, a vitamin shake, something special, she called it. Rita's hands twisted in her lap. And every week, 12 minutes after Lily drank it, she'd be in the bathroom throwing up. Did you notice this pattern right away? No. At first I just thought the kid had a sensitive stomach. But then I started paying attention. I started counting. And I realized it only happened when she drank what her stepmother brought. When she just ate our food, she was fine. What made you decide to say something? Rita looked at Marcus, then at the gallery where Lily wasn't sitting but should have been. I have 3 kids of my own. I know what sick looks like. And that little girl wasn't just sick, she was disappearing. Every week a little thinner, a little paler, a little more scared. Rita's voice cracked. I couldn't watch her die without saying something. I couldn't live with myself if I stayed quiet and she ended up in a coffin. Torres introduced the photographs Rita had taken. The image of Stephanie's hand. The amber bottle. The powder dissolving into the pink smoothie. Ms. Delgado, why did you take these photos? Because I knew nobody would believe me. A waitress accusing a nurse of poisoning her own stepdaughter. I needed proof. The jury studied the photographs. Several of them looked at Stephanie with expressions that had shifted from neutral to something colder. Whitmore's cross-examination was brutal. Ms. Delgado, you have no medical training, correct? No. No degree in toxicology. No background in pharmaceuticals. No. So when you saw my client adding something to a drink, you had no way of knowing what that substance was. I knew what happened after. You knew the child got sick. Children get sick, Ms. Delgado. It's not unusual. Not like this, not on a schedule. A schedule you constructed yourself, based on your own observations, your own interpretations. Based on 6 weeks of watching that little girl get sicker every time she drank what your client brought her. Whitmore smiled thinly. You approached Mr. Cole that night, told him his wife was poisoning his daughter. That's quite an accusation to make, based on timing and intuition. I showed him the photos. Photos of a hand adding something to a drink. It could have been vitamins, supplements, flavor enhancer. It wasn't. How do you know? Rita leaned forward. Because I have eyes. Because I watched that child shrink week after week. Because I saw the fear in her face every time her stepmother touched her food. Because no vitamin in the world makes a healthy kid vomit for 20 minutes straight. Whitmore stepped back slightly. You're very passionate about this, Ms. Delgado. A child almost died. Yeah, I'm passionate. Passionate enough to interfere in a family you knew nothing about. Passionate enough to accuse a woman you'd never spoken to of attempted murder. Passionate enough to do the right thing when everyone else looked away. Rita's chin lifted. I'd do it again. 100 times. 1,000. Because that little girl is alive today, and she wouldn't be if I'd stayed quiet like you think I should have. The courtroom went silent. Even Whitmore didn't have a response. Derek Simmons testified on day 4. He shuffled to the stand in his orange jumpsuit wrists, shackled face gray with the reality of what his cooperation had cost him. 15 years instead of 30. Still 15 years, and Mr. Simmons, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? Derek cleared his throat. We were together, on and off for about 12 years. Even while she was married to Daniel Reeves. Yes. And while she was married to Marcus Cole. Yes. A ripple went through the jury. Stephanie's composed expression flickered for just a moment. Can you describe the nature of your arrangement with the defendant? Derek looked at Stephanie. She stared back with eyes like chips of ice. He looked away first. We had a plan. Find marks. People with money assets, insurance policies. Stephanie would marry them, build trust, then take care of things. Take care of things. Can you be more specific? Kill them. Or their kids. Whoever had the biggest policy. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Mr. Simmons, how many targets did you and the defendant identify? 6. After Marcus Cole, there were 6 more. Torres pulled out a folder. Can you identify these individuals? Derek looked at the photos. Named each one. 3 widowers with young children. 2 divorcees with custody. 1 single father whose wife had died in a car accident. And what was the plan for each of these men? Same as the others. Stephanie marries them, takes out policies on the kids, waits a year or 2, then starts the process. The process? Poisoning. Small doses over months. Make it look like illness. When they die, it looks natural. Payout. Divorce. Move on. Marcus closed his eyes. 6 more families. 6 more children. All of them targeted. All of them marked for death. If Rita hadn't been paying attention. Mr. Simmons, did you ever express concerns about this plan? Derek shifted uncomfortably. I told her kids were risky. Too much attention. But she said they were easier. Parents blame themselves when kids get sick. They don't look for outside causes. And Daniel Reeves, her first husband, was that your plan too? That was her test run. Before me, really. She figured out what worked, what didn't. By the time she married Marcus, she had it down to a science. A science? Dosing, timing, how to act concerned without looking suspicious, how to document everything for the doctors so she looked like the worried parent. Torres paused. Let the words settle over the courtroom like ash. Mr. Simmons, why are you testifying today? Derek's shoulders sagged. Because I'm going to prison either way, and because... He stopped, swallowed hard. Because that little girl almost died. And I helped plan it. I can't take that back, but I can make sure Stephanie doesn't do it again. Whitmore's cross-examination was desperate. Mr. Simmons, you've been offered a reduced sentence in exchange for this testimony, correct? Yes. So you have a significant incentive to say whatever the prosecution wants you to say. I'm telling the truth. The truth according to a man facing 30 years in prison who suddenly remembers details that conveniently support the state's case. Derek looked at her. I have the text messages. I have the emails. I have records of every conversation we had about every target. He gestured toward the evidence table. It's all there, every word. You can't fake that. Whitmore had nothing. Elena Reeves testified on day 6. 3 years of grief poured out of her on that witness stand. 3 years of being told she was crazy. 3 years of knowing her brother had been murdered while the world looked away. Ms. Reeves, can you describe your brother's health before he married the defendant? Elena wiped her eyes. Danny was the healthiest person I knew. He ran marathons, did triathlons, never sick a day in his life. And after the marriage, he started getting tired, weak, having episodes where his heart would race and he'd feel like he was dying. Elena's voice shook. He went to doctors, specialists. Nobody could figure out what was wrong. And the whole time Stephanie was right there beside him, bringing him special teas, special supplements, taking such good care of him. Did you ever suspect something was wrong? I saw her once, about a month before he died. She was putting drops from a little bottle into his drink. When I asked what it was, she said it was herbal, for his heart. Did you tell anyone? I told the police. They said I was grasping at straws, grieving, looking for someone to blame. Elena's jaw tightened. They told me to get therapy. And after your brother died, I kept investigating. On my own. I saved every document, every medical record, every suspicion. I knew nobody believed me, but I couldn't let it go. Why not? Elena looked at Stephanie with pure hatred. Because she killed my brother, and I knew that someday she'd do it again. And when she did, someone would finally believe me. Torres approached the witness stand. Ms. Reeves, did you ever give up? No. Elena's voice was steel. Not for one day, not for one moment. I knew the truth, and the truth doesn't go away just because people refuse to see it. She looked at the jury. My brother is dead because I couldn't prove what I knew. That little girl is alive because someone finally listened. Her voice cracked. Don't let her do this again. Don't let there be another Daniel, another Lily, another family destroyed. The jury forewoman was crying. Stephanie's lawyer didn't cross-examine. There was nothing to say. The defense called character witnesses, colleagues from the nursing home who testified that Stephanie was dedicated, compassionate, beloved by her patients, neighbors who described her as friendly and helpful, a pastor who spoke about her charitable donations and volunteer work. Marcus listened to it all with growing nausea. This was the mask, the performance, the carefully constructed facade that had fooled him, fooled Daniel Reeves, fooled everyone who'd ever trusted her. Then the defense made a mistake. They put Stephanie on the stand. She walked to the witness box with her head held high, composed, confident. The wrongly accused woman finally getting her chance to speak. Mrs. Cole, did you poison your stepdaughter? No. Stephanie's voice was clear and firm. I loved Lily. I still love her. I would never hurt her. Did you poison your first husband, Daniel Reeves? No. Danny's death was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I was devastated. I still grieve for him every day. Then how do you explain the evidence against you? Stephanie shook her head sadly. I can't. I've tried to understand it and I can't. The only explanation I have is that my husband and his friends wanted me gone. They fabricated evidence. They twisted innocent actions into something sinister. The journal with detailed dosing records, planted or forged. I never wrote anything like that. The text messages to Derek Simmons. I don't know anyone named Derek Simmons. Torres rose for cross-examination with a look that made Marcus's heart sing. Mrs. Cole, you just testified that you don't know Derek Simmons. That's correct. Torres pulled out a photograph. Then can you explain this? The image showed Stephanie and Derek at a restaurant, holding hands, smiling. A timestamp in the corner showed a date 8 months ago. Stephanie's composure cracked. I might have met him once or twice. Casually. Casually. Torres held up another photo. Then another. Then another. These are from the defendant's own phone, recovered from cloud storage. 12 photos over a period of 3 years. The same man, Derek Simmons. The man you claim you don't know. I forgot. You forgot your long-term romantic partner, the man you texted about when your stepdaughter would die, the man who testified that you planned to murder at least 6 more children. Stephanie's face had gone white. He's lying. About which part? The photos, the texts, the financial records showing you transferred money to him 3 days after Daniel Reeves's insurance policy paid out. That's not $300,000 over 3 years, Mrs. Cole, transferred to a man you claim you don't know. Stephanie looked at her lawyer, at the jury, at the gallery where 180 Hell's Angels sat in silent judgment, and for the first time, she had nothing to say. No further questions. Closing arguments happened on day 8. Torres spoke for an hour. She walked the jury through every piece of evidence: the toxicology, the journal, the text messages, the pattern connecting Daniel Reeves to Lily Cole, the 6 additional targets, the financial trail, the photographs, the testimony from 4 different witnesses who had no connection to each other except that they'd all seen pieces of the same terrible truth. This defendant is not sick, Torres concluded. She's not insane. She's not a victim. She is a predator who selected vulnerable families, married into them, and systematically poisoned their children for profit. She pointed at Stephanie. Lily Cole is alive today because a waitress paid attention. Daniel Reeves is dead because nobody did. Don't let her lawyer convince you that this is about bikers or procedures or reasonable doubt. This is about a woman who killed a man and almost killed a child and was planning to do it again. Torres turned to the jury. Find her guilty. For Lily, for Daniel, for the 6 children she'll never get the chance to hurt. Find her guilty, and make sure she never destroys another family again. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 23 minutes. Marcus sat in the hallway, with Spectre unable to eat, unable to speak, unable to do anything but wait. What if they don't believe it? He finally asked. What if the lawyer got to them? What if they think we planted evidence, or they won't? How do you know? Spectre looked at him. Because the truth matters, and the truth is on our side. The bailiff appeared. They've reached a verdict. Marcus stood on legs that felt like water. This was it. The courtroom was silent as the jury filed back in. The forewoman stood. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were red-rimmed. On the charge of attempted murder in the 1st degree, we the jury find the defendant guilty. Marcus exhaled. On the charge of murder in the 1st degree for the death of Daniel Reeves, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Elena Reeves sobbed. 3 years of grief and vindication pouring out at once. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. On the charge of child endangerment, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. On the charge of insurance fraud, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Guilty, 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 guilty. Every count, every charge, every crime she'd committed, laid bare and punished. Stephanie Cole stood motionless as the verdicts were read. Her face was blank, empty. The mask had finally cracked, and there was nothing behind it. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. As the bailiffs moved to take her away, Stephanie turned and looked at Marcus. "She'll never be the same," she said. "Lily, whatever happens to me, she'll carry this forever. I made sure of that." Marcus stepped forward, and for one moment, every person in that courtroom thought he was going to do something he'd regret. Instead, he smiled. "You're wrong," he said. "Lily is going to be fine. She's going to grow up healthy and happy and loved. She's going to forget your name, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell knowing that you failed, that all your planning and scheming and manipulation amounted to nothing, that you lost." Stephanie's face twisted with rage. "I never lose." "You just did." The bailiffs took her away. Marcus watched her go. Then he walked out of the courtroom into the daylight and called his father. "It's over," he said. "She's guilty, all counts." On the other end of the line, he heard Lily's voice in the background. "Daddy, is it done?" Marcus felt tears sliding down his cheeks. "Yeah, baby girl. It's done. She's never going to hurt you again." Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Marcus sat in the same courtroom, same seat, same row of leather-clad brothers behind him. But this time Lily was there too. She'd insisted. Dr. Chen had argued against it, said the child needed distance from her trauma, not continued exposure. Said watching her abuser be sentenced could set back months of therapy. Lily had looked at the therapist with eyes that seemed decades older than 8, and said, "I need to see her go away. I need to know it's real." So here she was, pressed against Marcus's side, thin fingers wrapped around his hand, watching the door through which Stephanie Cole would enter for the last time. "Daddy, yeah, baby girl. What if the judge doesn't give her enough time? What if she gets out someday?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "She won't." "But what if—" "Lily." He turned to face her. "Look at me." She looked. "That woman is never going to hurt you again. Not next year. Not in 10 years. Not ever. I promise you." "How can you promise that—" Marcus glanced at Spectre, at Medic, at Elder, at the 180 men and women who had dropped everything to protect a child they'd never met. "Because you have family now. Real family. And family protects each other." Lily followed his gaze to the rows of leather and patches, to the scarred hands and weathered faces, to the people who looked like every suburban parent's nightmare, but had turned out to be her salvation. "They're my family, too." "Yeah, sweetheart. They're your family, too." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Okay." Just that, okay. Like something had settled inside her. Some question answered. Some fear finally put to rest. The door opened. Stephanie entered in chains. She'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. The perfect hair was flat and unwashed. The flawless makeup was gone. She shuffled to her seat like someone who'd finally realized that the game was over and she'd lost. The judge entered. Everyone rose. "Be seated." Papers shuffled. The courtroom held its breath. "Stephanie Marie Cole, You have been found guilty of murder in the first-degree attempted murder in the first-degree conspiracy to commit murder, child endangerment, and insurance fraud. The judge's voice was ice. Before I pass sentence, do you have anything to say? Stephanie's lawyer whispered something. Stephanie shook her head. Then she stood. Your Honor, I maintain my innocence. I never harmed anyone. I loved Daniel. I loved Lily. Everything that's happened is the result of lies and fabricated evidence by my husband and his criminal associates. She turned and looked at Marcus. You did this to me. You and your biker gang. You destroyed my life because you couldn't accept that your daughter was sick. You needed someone to blame, so you chose me. Her voice rose. I hope you're happy. I hope you can live with yourself knowing that you've condemned an innocent woman to, that's enough. The judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Sit down, Mrs. Cole. Stephanie sat, but her eyes never left Marcus's face. He looked back at her with nothing but emptiness. Not hatred, not satisfaction. Just the hollow exhaustion of someone who'd finally stopped waiting for the monster to show remorse. The judge shuffled his papers. Mrs. Cole, I've presided over criminal trials for 23 years. I've seen murderers, rapists, armed robbers, and every kind of human darkness you can imagine. But I have never encountered a defendant as cold-blooded and calculating as you. He leaned forward. You didn't kill in passion. You didn't kill in self-defense. You didn't kill because you were desperate or frightened or pushed beyond your limits. You killed for money. You planned murders like business transactions. You kept records of your crimes like a scientist conducting experiments, and you would have continued killing indefinitely if a waitress at a diner hadn't been paying attention. The judge looked at Lily. That child almost died. She spent months vomiting, losing weight, watching her body fail, while the woman who was supposed to care for her smiled and brought her poison disguised as vitamins. And when she asked why she was sick, you told her that her suffering was healing, that her pain meant the treatment was working. His voice shook with barely controlled fury. That level of cruelty is almost incomprehensible. To torture a child to watch her suffer day after day and use her confusion and trust as a weapon against her. I cannot imagine the darkness that lives inside a person capable of such acts. He straightened. For the murder of Daniel Reeves, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Elena Reeves made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. For the attempted murder of Lily Cole, I sentence you to an additional 25 years to be served consecutively. Marcus felt Lily's grip tighten on his hand. For conspiracy to commit murder, an additional 10 years. For child endangerment, an additional 5 years. For insurance fraud, an additional 3 years. The judge set down his papers. In total, you are sentenced to life, plus 43 years in state prison. You will never be eligible for parole. You will die behind bars. And the only comfort I take from this case is knowing that you will never have the opportunity to destroy another family. He looked at Stephanie with undisguised contempt. May God have mercy on your soul, because I certainly won't. The gavel fell. It was over. Stephanie Cole was taken away in chains, and this time she didn't look back, didn't sneer, didn't threaten. She just walked through the door like a person who'd finally realized that all her planning and scheming had amounted to nothing. Marcus sat motionless as the courtroom emptied around him. Lily tugged at his hand. Daddy. He looked down at her. Is she really gone forever? Yeah, baby girl, forever. Lily nodded slowly. Processing. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She smiled. Not a big smile. not the carefree grin of the happy child she'd been before Stephanie entered their lives, but a real smile. The first genuine expression of happiness Marcus had seen on her face since the nightmare began. "Can we go home now?" Marcus stood, lifted her into his arms, held her against his chest like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go home." The recovery took time. There were setbacks. Nightmares that woke Lily screaming in the middle of the night. Days when she refused to eat because some part of her brain still associated food with poison. Moments when she'd flinch away from Marcus's touch, then cry because she knew he'd never hurt her, but her body hadn't learned that yet. Dr. Chen came twice a week. Gentle sessions where Lily drew pictures of her feelings and learned to name the emotions that crashed through her like waves. Anger, fear, confusion. The deep, complicated grief of mourning a stepmother who'd never really existed. "She's processing," Dr. Chen told Marcus after the first month. "It's going to take time, maybe years. But she's resilient. Children have an amazing capacity to heal when they feel safe." "Does she feel safe?" "With you, yes." Dr. Chen paused. "She asked me last week why you didn't see what Stephanie was doing, why you couldn't protect her sooner." Marcus felt like he'd been kicked. "What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth, that predators like Stephanie are experts at hiding what they are, that you were targeted just like she was, that you're not to blame for trusting someone who was specifically designed to be trusted." "Did she believe you?" "I think so. But she needs to hear it from you too. She needs to know that you don't blame yourself, because as long as you carry that guilt, she'll carry it too." Marcus went home that night and sat on the edge of Lily's bed. "Dr. Chen told me you asked about why I didn't see it sooner." Lily looked at him with those too old eyes. "You're sad about it, I can tell." "Yeah, I am. It's not your fault, Daddy." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What? Dr. Chen says Stephanie was really good at lying, that she fooled everyone, not just you. She fooled Danny's sister. She fooled the doctors. She fooled the police." Lily's voice was small, but certain. "She didn't fool Rita, but Rita was watching from far away. She could see things we couldn't see, because she wasn't part of it." Marcus couldn't speak. His 8-year-old daughter was comforting him, telling him it wasn't his fault, giving him the absolution he couldn't give himself. "I know you would have stopped her if you knew," Lily continued. "I know you love me. You came for me the same night Rita told you. You didn't wait. You didn't make excuses, you just came." She reached out and took his hand. "That's what matters." Marcus gathered her into his arms and held her while tears streamed down his face. "I love you so much," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you better. You protect me now. Every day." Lily's voice was muffled against his chest. "That's enough, Daddy. That's enough." The physical recovery was faster than anyone expected. Week 1, 52 pounds. Week 4, 58. Week 8, 64. By month 3, Lily had hit 70 pounds, gained 2 inches in height, and started looking like a normal 8-year-old instead of a famine victim. Medic drove her to physical therapy 3 times a week. He'd show up at Marcus's door at exactly 3:45 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, protein bar in hand, terrible dad joke ready to go. "Hey, Squirt, what do you call a fake noodle?" Lily would groan. "I don't know, Medic. What? An impasta." "That's awful." "I know, but you're smiling." She was, every time. The sessions were hard. Lily's muscles had atrophied from months of malnutrition. Simple things, walking upstairs carrying her backpack, running across the playground, left her exhausted and frustrated. But Medic was patient. He never pushed too hard, never let her give up, just showed up day after day and helped her rebuild what had been taken from her. "Why do you keep coming?" Lily asked him one afternoon 6 weeks into therapy. "You have your own family, your own stuff to do. Why do you spend so much time helping me?" Medic considered the question. Because that's what family does. But we're not really family. Sure we are, Medic smiled. Family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up. About being there when people need you. About doing the hard stuff because you care, not because you have to. He shrugged. "Your dad's my brother. That makes you my niece. End of story." Lily was quiet for a moment. "I've never had an uncle before." "Well, now you've got about 180 of them, plus aunts, plus cousins, the whole messy, loud motorcycle riding package." Medic ruffled her hair. "You're stuck with us, kid. Might as well get used to it." Lily's smile that day was the brightest Marcus had seen in years. 6 months after the trial, the club threw Lily a birthday party. She was turning 9. Her first birthday since being rescued. Her first birthday in a life that felt like it might actually be worth living. The clubhouse had been transformed. Purple and silver streamers, Lily's new favorite colors, hung from every surface. A massive cake decorated with butterflies and flowers sat on the main table. Presents were stacked so high they threatened to topple. And people. So many people. Marcus counted heads as they arrived. Spectre and his wife. Medic and his 2 kids. Scholar and elder. Wire with a girlfriend nobody knew he had. Rita Delgado, who'd closed the diner early to be there. Dr. Vance and Dr. Chen. Elena Reeves, who'd driven 3 hours because she wanted Lily to know that justice had been served for both families. By the time the party started, there were nearly 200 people packed into the clubhouse. Lily stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed. "Daddy, are all these people here for me? Every single one. But I don't even know most of them." "They know you." Marcus knelt beside her. "They know what you survived. They know how brave you are, and they wanted to be here to celebrate the fact that you made it." Lily looked at the crowd, at the leather and the tattoos and the scarred hands and weathered faces, at the people who'd dropped everything to save a child they'd never met. "This is weird," she said. Marcus laughed. "Yeah, it kind of is. Good weird, though. Yeah, baby girl, good weird." When they sang Happy Birthday, Lily stood behind her cake with tears in her eyes. Not sad tears. The overwhelmed, grateful tears of someone who'd learned what it felt like to be alone and was discovering what it felt like to be surrounded by people who cared. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Marcus said. Lily closed her eyes. She was quiet for a long moment. The candles flickered. The room held its breath. Then she blew out 9 flames in one breath. When she opened her eyes, they were clear and bright, and full of something Marcus hadn't seen in over a year. Hope. "What did you wish for?" one of Medic's kids asked. Lily shook her head. "Can't tell, but..." She looked at Marcus. "I think it already came true." Later, after cake and presents, and more food than Lily had eaten in a single sitting since before Stephanie, she found herself sitting on the clubhouse steps with Spectre. The party was still going inside, but Lily had needed a break from all the noise and attention. Spectre had followed her out, settled beside her, and for a while they just sat in comfortable silence. "You doing okay, kid?" Lily thought about it. "I think so. It's just a lot." "Good lot or bad lot?" "Good, definitely good." She paused. I've never had this many people show up for me before, not even when I was little before my mom died. Spectre nodded slowly. Get used to it. That's what Medic says. Smart man. Spectre smiled slightly. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to really hear it. Can you do that? Lily turned to look at him fully. What happened to you was evil. Pure, calculated evil. And nothing about it was your fault. You didn't do anything to cause it. You didn't fail to stop it. You were a child being hurt by an adult who should have protected you. The only person responsible for that evil is Stephanie. Not you. Not your dad. Not anyone except the woman who chose to do what she did. Lily's eyes filled with tears. But sometimes I think if I'd told someone, told them what? That you were sick. You did tell them. You told doctors, nurses, teachers. They all missed it because she was that good at hiding it. Spectre's voice was gentle but firm. The system failed you, Lily. A lot of people failed you. But you didn't fail yourself. You survived. Day after day, you survived something that was designed to kill you. That's not weakness. That's strength. A tear slid down Lily's cheek. I don't feel strong. I know, and that's okay. Strength doesn't always feel like strength. Sometimes it feels like being tired and scared and just putting one foot in front of the other anyway. Spectre put a hand on her shoulder. You're going to have hard days. Days when you remember what happened and it feels fresh and raw and terrible. That's normal. That's healing. But I need you to promise me something. What? When those days come when you feel like you're drowning, you call someone. Your dad. Me. Medic, Dr. Chen. Any one of those 200 people inside who would drop everything to help you. You don't suffer alone. You reach out. Can you promise me that... Lily wiped her eyes. I promise. Good girl. Spectre squeezed her shoulder gently. Now I think there's still some cake left, and if we don't get back in there, Medic's kids are going to eat all of it. Lily laughed. A real laugh. The kind that came from somewhere deep and genuine and unbroken. We should probably stop them. Probably. Spectre stood and offered her his hand. Come on, birthday girl. Your party's waiting. Lily took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Together they walked back into the noise and the warmth and the chaos of 200 people celebrating the survival of one small girl. 1 year later, Lily made the honor roll. Her grades weren't perfect. Math was still hard. Reading comprehension took extra time. But she'd gone from a child too sick to focus to a student who showed up every day, did the work, and refused to give up. Mrs. Patterson, her teacher, nominated her for the school's Perseverance Award. At the ceremony, Lily walked across the stage to accept her certificate. She was wearing a new dress, purple, her favorite, and her hair was thick and shiny, and pulled back in a ponytail that swung when she walked. The applause was polite. Parents clapping for every child the way they always did. Then the back rows stood up. 47 people in leather vests. Men and women with patches and tattoos, and the kind of faces that made other parents nervous. They rose as one and clapped like thunder. Lily looked back at them. At her father, tears streaming down his face. At Spectre, standing proud and straight. At Medic, who whistled so loud the principal winced. At Rita Delgado, who'd taken the day off work because she couldn't miss this. At Elena Reeves, who'd driven 3 hours because some things mattered more than convenience. At all the people who'd refused to look away when looking away would have been easier. Lily smiled. Not the scared smile of a child who'd learned to make herself small. The real smile of someone who knew bone deep and certain that she was worth protecting. That she mattered. That her life had value. That she was loved. 2 years after that October night, Marcus and Lily walked into Maple Street Diner. Same booth, same time, same menu, but everything was different. Lily ordered chicken tenders, ate every single one, laughed at her father's terrible joke about why the chicken crossed the road. Her hands didn't shake. Her stomach didn't hurt. She didn't excuse herself to the bathroom to throw up in private shame. She was just a kid having dinner with her dad. Normal, safe, whole. Rita brought them pie on the house, chocolate cream, Lily's favorite. She set it down with 2 forks and stood there for a moment looking at the healthy color in Lily's cheeks, the way she sat up straight instead of hunched in protection, the light in her eyes that had been missing for so long. "Good to see you, sweetheart." Lily looked up at her. This woman who'd saved her life with nothing but attention and courage. "Thanks, Rita, for everything." Rita ruffled her hair thick and full, no more thinning patches, and her eyes glistened. "You take care of yourself, okay? And take care of your dad. He needs you." "I will." Rita moved on to the next table, but she glanced back twice. Like she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. Like some part of her was still expecting the gray-faced, hollow-eyed ghost of a child she'd watched disappear week after week. Marcus watched his daughter eat pie, and he thought about everything they'd survived. The betrayal, the trial, the endless nights of nightmares and healing, the slow, painful process of learning to trust again. Lily caught him staring. "What? Nothing. Just happy." "You're being weird." "I know." Marcus smiled. "I'm allowed to be weird sometimes." Lily rolled her eyes, but she was smiling too. Outside, the sun was setting. Through the window, Marcus could see his truck, and parked beside it a small purple bicycle with training wheels finally removed. Lily's reward for a year of physical therapy, her symbol of freedom. They finished their pie, paid the check, leaving Rita a tip that made her eyes go wide, and walked out into the evening air. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the child who'd almost died, at the girl who'd survived, at the young woman she was becoming. "Hey, Lily. Yeah, I love you." She looked up at him with those brown eyes, so much older than they should be, so much wiser, but still underneath all of it, still his little girl. "I love you too, Daddy." They climbed into the truck and drove home. Behind them, Maple Street Diner grew smaller in the rearview mirror, the place where a waitress had made a choice that changed everything, the place where courage had triumphed over fear, the place where one ordinary woman had refused to look away while a child disappeared in front of her. And if you'd asked Rita later, years later, when the story had become legend, when people came to the diner just to see where it had happened, if you'd asked her why she'd done it, she would have said the same thing every time. Because somebody had to. Because that little girl deserved better. Because the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. She'd pause then. And because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for each other. Strangers, neighbors, the kid in the booth across the restaurant. We're all connected. And when you see someone suffering, you have 2 choices. You can look away and pretend it's not your problem. Or you can speak up and just maybe save a life. Rita chose to speak up. 180 Hell's Angels chose to listen. A father chose to believe. And a little girl got the chance to grow up. That's not a fairy tale. That's not a Hollywood ending. That's what happens when ordinary people decide that protecting the vulnerable matters more than minding their own business. That's what happens when strangers become family. That's what happens when courage beats silence. On a Wednesday evening in October, 2 years after everything changed, Lily Cole sat in booth 12 at Maple Street Diner, eating chocolate cream pie with her father, surrounded by the invisible protection of 200 people who would die before they let anyone hurt her again. She was safe. She was healthy. She was home. And that is how this story ends, not with a villain's punishment or a hero's reward, but with a child's smile. A smile that said, "I survived." A smile that said, "I am loved." A smile that said, "I matter." Because she did. She mattered more than life insurance policies or murder plots, or the calculated cruelty of a woman who saw children as investments to be liquidated. She mattered because every child matters. And sometimes all it takes to prove that is one person willing to pay attention when everyone else looks away.